If you are a student, young professional, or just starting your career and you have little to no knowledge about money management, then this video is for you. As a finance professional with over 10 years experience in the finance space, I can categorically tell you that this is one of those major areas that is highly neglected. In this video, I'll be walking you through 7 practical steps or action plans you can take if you are serious about building wealth, securing your financial future, and attaining financial independence before the age of 35. Also, if you're outside this category I'm talking to, feel free to share with those that fall within this category in your sphere of influence and your friends list. So I want to establish a fact. Being financially independent and secure in your 20s and 30s is actually very possible with the right planning, focus, and determination. According to a definition by Experian, financial security is the ability to afford your expenses, live comfortably on your income, and save for the future. So if you constantly worry about your finances, then there's a high likelihood that you're not financially secure. So if you're actually serious about attaining financial security or financial independence, or in the worst case, towing that path, there are 7 factors which you need to implement from today in order to put you in the right direction. So I'm going to be walking you through 4 of those factors in this video and the remaining 3 in the next episode. So ensure you subscribe so you don't miss that next episode. So the first factor I'm going to be talking about is what I call financial literacy. So you need to understand that everything about money management is hinged on this main question which I want you to ask yourself today. And that's simply, how much do I know about money or financial management? Well, if your answer to that question was little, I would recommend that you invest in your financial knowledge from today going forward. Now, this simply means acquiring knowledge around personal finance that can help your decision making around investments, savings, and many more areas. So you can do this by reading books, attending trainings, going for networking events, listening to news, and much more. So in other words, all I'm trying to say is that you need to do everything possible to equip yourself with the requisite financial knowledge that would help your financial decision making going forward. So when you do this, it's going to help you to learn from the mistakes that other people have made and help you avoid pitfalls or mistakes that people have been making or currently making. So I have a couple of amazing personal finance books which have been helpful to me, and I recommend you get them if possible, and you can find them in the description box below. So check them out and tell me what you think. I'm rest assured that you're going to find so much value reading these books. So the second area of focus which you need to pay attention to is what I call budgeting. If you're actually serious about being financially secure or independent, you need to own a budget today. In other words, set up a budget, learn how to effectively use it, and of course use it to manage your finances appropriately. So a budget typically gives you an overview of all your cash inflow and outflow and helps you to manage your finances, including your spending. The budget also helps you to identify areas where you might have spare cash which you can channel to other important areas in your finances. For instance, if you want to pay down a debt, or you want to save towards an investment purpose, or whatever decision you want to make, the budget helps you to identify those areas at a glance. So a budget typically helps you to, number 1, track your expenditures effectively, manage your money appropriately, save for the future, and ultimately helps you to pay down your debt and get you out of the debt burden. So budgets can be maintained in different formats. We have the semi-automated format such as your Excel sheet or template, and then we have the automated format which comes in form of a budgeting app that you can download into your phone, your laptops, or any other electronic device which you use. So if you need more details about budgeting apps and how they work and my top 5 best budgeting apps, I've tagged the video up here which you can go back to watch, and then that can help you decide on the budgeting apps you might want to get for your own use. Finally, when you create your budget, it's important for you to monitor your budget effectively at a defined frequency, say weekly or on a monthly basis. So the purpose for this monitoring process is to identify areas of over expenditure, areas where you could save even more, and how you can effectively allocate your funds across your budget or expenditure categories. For instance, you can actually identify a subscription service which you are paying for that you probably never use the service anymore. That helps you to scrap those costs and of course save money in the long term. Remember, circumstances can change from time to time, which will require you to continuously adjust your budget to reflect all of those changes or dynamics. So the third factor which you need to consider if you're serious about financial independence and security is what I call spending habits. So it's very important for you to keep your spending in check. Now, how do I mean? When you set up your budget, it's important for you to allocate a certain amount or percentage that goes into different categories of your expenditure. For instance, an amount allocated to your feeding, amount allocated to rent and subscriptions, and so on. So this amount would then serve as the limit or the high point which your actual expenditures on a daily to weekly basis must never exceed. So the next thing you need to do in order to keep your spending in check is avoiding cost creep. So cost creep is simply when your cost or your expenditure grows at the same rate as your income. That's to say, if your income is growing, your expenditure is also growing. So you might actually be asking me, how do I avoid cost creep? I'll tell you in 3 steps how you can do that. Step 1, live within your means. Simply put, ensure you're not spending more than what your income can cover on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So it's clear knowledge to everyone that as your income increases, there's a high likelihood that your taste will continuously change. Now, this might make you want to get the most expensive or more expensive alternative to whatever device or asset or property you own at the moment. Now, when you do all of these changes frequently, it increases your cost head overall. And to be honest, I've seen this happen many times with a lot of people I've spoken to. However, on the other hand, if you choose to retain your current spending level, even while your income increases, it creates more gap and excess cash flow which you can divert or channel to other areas of your finances. For instance, you can use it to pay down any debts that you already have, or you can invest or save those extra funds. So the second thing you can do to avoid the cost creep is to avoid borrowing to fund your lifestyle. Now, from my numerous years of experience, I've seen a lot of people that take things like loans, credits, and all sorts of borrowed funds to fund their basic or expensive lifestyle. Now, this is simply regarded as bad debt, and if this is you, you need to stop that today if you are serious about financial security. So I have a rule of thumb that can guide you in this aspect, and that is, don't borrow money if the returns from funds usage would not outweigh the cost of borrowing the funds or the interest payment. So let's take a very simple illustration which you can apply today. So let's assume you borrowed $1,000 at 10% interest. Your cost of borrowing will be $100, which is simply $1,000 times 10%, right? Now, if you invested the same $1,000 which you borrowed at 20% rate or interest, you would have returns of $200, which is simply $1,000 times 20%. Now, the difference between the $100, which is your cost, and the $200, which is your returns, gives you a gain of $100. Now, using the rule of thumb, I'm simply saying that ensure that if you're borrowing funds, it has to give you returns that outweighs the cost so that you are able to make some gain, just like the scenario I just explained. Now, just to conclude on this concept, now if you use borrowed funds or loans to fund non-income generating assets or anything you want to purchase, but you notice that you cannot afford to pay outright cash for those items, or where you choose to opt in for an installment, then I would recommend you avoid those purchases as much as possible.
Stop buying rubbish.
A common example is your electronic devices, which you probably change from time to time, or even cars if you are one person that loves to buy cars a lot. So you need to also be careful around those areas. So the third thing you need to take note of is cutting down your expenditure as much as you can. Now, I want to believe that you already have a budget. So when you pick up your budget and you're analyzing on a periodic basis, what you really need to do is analyze your different expenditure and categorize them into needs and wants. Now, the needs are things that are unavoidable, which you necessarily have to incur on a periodic basis. However, the wants are avoidable and are discretionary. So once you're able to differentiate between these two, you can allocate your funds, of course, to your needs first before the wants, which may not necessarily be required. So just to help you in this regard, I've linked a video here where I talked about many ways or multiple ways which you can save your cost or your expenditure head. So check it out and thank me later. So the fourth concept I want to explain that is going to help you towards attaining your financial security as early as your 30s or 20s is income generation. So I just want to specifically tell you that reducing your expenditure alone or your different cost head is just not adequate to help you build wealth or attain financial independence. The other additional effective way is just to increase your income sources. And remember, reducing your expenses and increasing your income sources are not mutually exclusive. In other words, you need to combine both of them to attain this mark as early as possible. So as a young person, this is the best time for you to take a risk. you need to take calculated risk at this point. And that's simply because if you make mistakes, you have more than enough time to recover from those mistakes, compared to someone that is more advanced in age that may lose out on time. So I'm just going to recommend that you embark on different initiatives that will help you generate additional income or increase your sources of income at the moment. For instance, you can do multiple jobs, you can work part-time, you can do a side hustle. So the point I'm trying to make is that this is the point where you need to be the most risk aggressive. In other words, take risk, find the opportunities, build your income level at this point much more than later. And trust me, you're going to thank your stars you did that. So another effective thing I think you can do in order to raise your income is to upskill. So upskilling entails maybe going back to school or self-studying or read for a new certification. The idea is to improve your skills so you can get better paying jobs or even get multiple jobs. So another thing you can also take into consideration is that if you work for an organization or a company that has a 401k program or RRSP program, then ensure you contribute to the maximum of what your employer is willing to match. That's one very fast way to increase your income overall. Now, if you do all of these things I've mentioned overall, you'll notice that your income capacity will significantly increase and you'll be able to save much more than you could ever imagine. Alright, thanks for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope you found this video very useful and insightful to you. Like I earlier mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be doing a second video where I'll be talking about the remaining 3 concepts which you need to apply effectively today so you can attain financial security as early as possible. So if you don't want to miss that video, ensure you hit that subscribe button right now, and then I'll see you at the next video. Bye.